The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the Incheon's Pride. Captain Lee Dae-ho sat in his command chair, watching the endless space through the main screen. His ship moved slowly through the outer rim, far from Earth and the busy trade routes. This was routine patrol work, the kind that kept the peace but rarely made headlines. "Captain," called Ensign Choi Hee-jin from her communication station, "I'm getting a distress signal." Lee turned his head toward her. Hee-jin was young but sharp. She could speak 17 different alien languages, which made her very useful out here in the mixed territories. "What kind of signal?" "It's from a civilian transport. They're calling for help." Hee-jin's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "The ship is called Safe Harbor. They carry passengers between the mining stations." Commander Park So-min stepped closer to the captain's chair. She had been Lee's first officer for 3 years now. Before that, she flew fighters in the defense fleet. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. "Sir, that transport route goes through dangerous space. Pirates like to hunt there." Lee nodded. Pirates were a problem in the Outer Rim. The Galactic Council tried to keep them under control, but space was big and patrol ships were few. "Set course for the signal. Maximum speed." The Incheon's Pride turned and picked up speed. Lee's ship looked like a standard patrol vessel from the outside. It had the usual weapons, the usual shields, and the usual size. Nothing special. That was exactly how Earth wanted it to look. "Sir, we're getting closer to the signal," reported Lieutenant Kim Tae-woo from the weapons station. Tae-woo was the youngest officer on the bridge, but he knew more about weapons than men twice his age. "I'm seeing 2 ships on the scanner." "Put them on screen," Lee ordered. The main screen changed to show 2 ships floating in space. One was clearly the civilian transport, a big, ugly ship built to carry cargo and passengers. The other ship was sleek and dark with sharp edges and glowing red lights. Lee recognized the design immediately. "Vorthak Raiders," Park said quietly. "That's a heavy cruiser class." The Vorthak Empire was one of the older powers in this part of the galaxy. They had been conquering smaller worlds for hundreds of years. Their ships were tough and their crews were mean. They looked down on most other species, especially humans. "The transport isn't moving," Tae-woo reported. "I think they've been captured." Lee studied the screen. The Vorthak ship was much bigger than his own vessel. In a straight fight, most captains would think twice before taking on a heavy cruiser. But Lee was not most captains, and his ship was not what it seemed. "Open a channel to the Vorthak ship," he told Hee-jin. "Channel open, sir." Lee stood up from his chair. He smoothed down his uniform and put on his most diplomatic face. "This is Captain Lee Dae-ho of the human vessel Incheon's Pride. You are holding a civilian transport. Please release the ship and we can discuss this peacefully." The screen flickered and then showed the bridge of the Vorthak ship. The alien captain was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were black and cold. Scars covered his face and neck. This was clearly a veteran raider. "I am General Thexmore of the Vorthak Empire," the alien said. His voice was deep and harsh. "You will turn around and leave, little mammal. This is none of your business." Lee kept his face calm. "I'm afraid I cannot do that, General. The transport is carrying innocent people. Surely we can work something out." Thexmore laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Work something out? You dare to bargain with me? Your pathetic species has been in space for what, 50 years? I have been raiding these stars since before your world knew about aliens." Behind, Lee Park moved quietly to her station. Her hands danced over the controls, checking systems and preparing options. Tae-woo did the same at his weapons console. They had worked together long enough to know what their captain was thinking. "The people on that transport have done nothing wrong," Lee continued. "They are miners and their families just trying to make a living. Let them go, and we will leave you alone." "You will leave me alone?" Thexmore's 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of amazement. "Little human, do you see my ship? It is 3 times the size of your toy boat. I have enough firepower to turn you into space dust." "I see your ship," Lee replied calmly. "Very impressive, but size is not everything, General." The alien's face twisted with anger. "You mock me? You think your weak species can stand against the might of the Vorthak Empire? We have crushed 100 worlds. We have burned the fleets of a dozen species. Lee clasped his hands behind his back. I am sure you have. But that does not give you the right to harm innocent people. Release the transport, General. This is your last warning. My last warning? Thexmore roared. You dare threaten me? I should kill you right now for your disrespect. That would be unwise, Lee said simply. On the alien ship, other Vorthak warriors moved closer to their general. They were all armed and looked eager for a fight. Their technology was old but reliable. Their tactics had worked for centuries. They saw no reason to worry about one small human ship. You humans are all the same, Thexmore sneered. You think you are clever, but you are weak. Your ships are weak. Your weapons are weak. Your courage is weak. I have studied your kind. I know what you can do. Lee raised an eyebrow. Do you? Of course. The Council shares information about all member species. Your ships use basic fusion drives. Your weapons are simple plasma cannons. Your shields are standard deflector arrays. Nothing special. Nothing to fear. I see. Lee's voice stayed level. And based on this information, you believe you can defeat us easily? I do not believe it, Thexmore said. I know it. Your entire species is a joke. You are lucky to be invited into the Council at all. Lee looked at the alien for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. General Thexmore, you have made a serious mistake today. What mistake? You assumed that what you see is all there is. Lee turned to Hyejin. Close the channel. The screen went dark. Lee turned to face his crew. Park was ready at her station. Taewoo had his hands over his weapons controls. Dr. Yoonji Hwan had appeared on the bridge from the medical bay, probably, sensing that things were about to get dangerous. Sir? Park asked quietly. Lee looked back at the main screen where the two ships still floated in space. The general wants to see what humans can do. I think it's time we showed him. General Thexmore paced back and forth on his bridge after the human captain cut the communication. His forearms moved in angry gestures as he spoke to his crew. The other Vorthak warriors watched their leader with respect and fear. They had served under him for many years and knew his moods well. Insolent mammals, Thexmore growled. They think they can threaten me. Me. I have conquered 12 star systems. I have destroyed the fleets of the Rillan Republic. I have made the Crystal Lords bow before me. His communications officer, a scarred veteran named Krixtal, looked up from his station. General, should we contact Admiral Krivas? He is only 2 jumps away with the main battle group. Thexmore stopped pacing. His black eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. Yes. Contact the Admiral. Tell him I have found some humans who need to learn respect. Tell him to bring the fleet. Admiral Krivas received the message on his flagship, the massive dreadnought Death's Edge. Like Thexmore, he was an old warrior who had spent his life conquering weaker species. The idea of crushing a single human ship amused him greatly. So, the mammals think they can challenge us, Krivas said to his own crew. How delightful. It has been too long since we made an example of someone. The Admiral's fleet was impressive even by Vorthak standards. 12 heavy cruisers, each one capable of destroying a small planet. Thousands of warriors eager for battle. Weapons that had been tested against dozens of species and found effective every time. Set course for Thexmore's position, Krivas ordered. Full speed. I want to reach them before the humans lose their nerve and run away. Back at the site of the standoff, Captain Lee watched his screens carefully. The Inchon's Pride had moved to a position between the Vorthak raider and the captured transport. Dr. Yoonji Hwan was preparing the medical bay for possible casualties. The doctor was a quiet man who preferred healing to fighting, but he understood that sometimes violence was necessary to protect the innocent. Captain, Ensign Hyejin reported, I'm detecting multiple jump signatures, large ships approaching fast. Lee nodded. He had expected this. The Vorthak were proud and aggressive. They would not let a challenge go unanswered, especially from a species they considered weak. How many ships? 12, sir. All heavy cruiser class. Lieutenant Taewoo looked up from his weapons station. Sir, that's a lot of firepower. Are you sure about this? Lee smiled. Relax, Lieutenant. Everything is going according to plan. Commander Park moved closer to the captain's chair. She had been studying the tactical display, calculating angles and distances. Sir, we could still withdraw. Jump to hyperspace before they arrive. We could, Lee agreed. But then the people on that transport would die, and the Vorthak would continue to believe that humans are weak. Are we really going to fight 12 cruisers? Taewoo asked. His young face showed excitement mixed with worry. Lee looked at his weapons officer. Tell me, Lieutenant, what do you think this ship is capable of? Taewoo blinked. Sir, it's a standard patrol vessel. Good shields, decent weapons, but nothing special. Is that what you really think? Taewoo hesitated. He had been on the ship for 6 months, but there were things about it that puzzled him. The power readings were sometimes higher than they should be. The computer systems seemed more advanced than standard models, and the engineering sections were classified above his security level. I'm not sure, sir, he admitted. Park smiled. Kim Tae-woo, what do you know about human military doctrine? Well, we prefer to avoid fights when possible. We try to use diplomacy first. That's true, Park said. But what happens when diplomacy fails? Tae-woo thought about it. We fight? We fight, Lee confirmed, but not the way most species expect. Tell me, what do you think the Vorthak know about our capabilities? Dr. Yoon spoke up from where he was checking medical supplies. They probably know what the Galactic Council database tells them. Standard information that all member species share. Exactly, Lee said. And what does that database say about human ships? Hyejin answered this time. It says we use fusion drives, plasma weapons, and deflector shields. Basic technology, nothing too advanced. And is that true? Lee asked. The bridge crew looked at each other uncertainly. They were all loyal to Earth and trusted their captain, but they were beginning to realize that there were things they didn't know about their own ship. Sir, Park said carefully, are you saying the database information is incomplete? I'm saying that humans have learned something important during our 50 years in space. We've learned that showing all your cards too early is a mistake. The space around them suddenly filled with light as 12 Vorthak ships dropped out of hyperspace. They were massive dark vessels covered in weapons and armor. Each one was easily 3 times the size of the Incheon's Pride. They moved into attack formation with practiced precision. Incoming transmission, Hyejin announced. Put it on screen. The display showed Admiral Krivas on his bridge. He was even larger than General Thexmore, with more scars and a meaner expression. Behind him, dozens of Vorthak warriors prepared for battle. Human vessel, Krivas said in a voice like grinding metal. I am Admiral Krivas of the Vorthak Imperial. Fleet, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick. Lee stood up slowly. Admiral, I am Captain Lee Dae-ho. We meet under unfortunate circumstances. Indeed, you have insulted General Thexmore and threatened the sovereignty of the Vorthak Empire. This cannot be allowed. I simply asked for the release of innocent civilians, Lee replied. Hardly an insult. Krivas laughed. You mammals are all the same. You think your words mean something. You think you can negotiate from a position of weakness? Look around you, human. Count my ships, count my guns, count your chances of survival. Lee did look around. The tactical display showed the Vorthak formation clearly. 12 ships in a perfect attack pattern, weapons charging, shields at maximum. Against them, 1 human patrol vessel that appeared to be completely outmatched. I count 12 ships, Lee said calmly. Very impressive. Then you understand your situation, Krivas said. You have 1 minute to surrender, lower your shields, and prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be sold as slaves. Your ship will become part of my fleet. I have a counteroffer, Lee said. The Admiral's scarred face twisted with amusement. You have nothing to offer, mammal. I offer you this, 30 seconds to withdraw your fleet and release the civilian transport. Take this chance to leave with your ships intact. The laughter from the Vorthak bridge was loud and harsh. Even General Thexmore appeared on the screen now, his forearms gesturing mockingly at the human captain. 30 seconds, Krivas roared. You dare to threaten me with one pathetic ship against my entire battle group? Lee checked his chronometer. 25 seconds now. You are insane, Thexmore said. Your ship will be space dust in moments. 15 seconds, Lee said quietly. Commander Park moved to her station. Her fingers hovered over controls that the Vorthak had never seen before. Lieutenant Tewu did the same, his excitement growing as he realized his captain had been planning this all along. 10 seconds, Lee announced. Admiral Krivas raised one of his hands. Enough of this foolishness. All ships, target the human. Vessel, charge all weapons, prepare to fire on my command. 5 seconds, Lee said. Admiral, Krivas shouted, you are about to learn why the Vorthak Empire rules this sector of space. Lee looked at the main screen one last time. No, Admiral. You are about to learn why humans are called Terrans. The countdown reached 0 on the bridge of the Incheon's Pride. Captain Lee stood calmly in front of the main screen, watching the massive Vorthak fleet prepare to attack. His crew waited at their stations, tension filling the air like electricity before a storm. Time's up, Admiral Krivas announced from his flagship. All vessels, lock weapons on the human ship. Show these mammals what happens when they challenge the Vorthak Empire. The 12 enemy cruisers moved into final attack position. Their weapon ports glowed with charging energy. On each ship, hundreds of warriors prepared for what they expected to be a very short battle. General Thexmore appeared on the communication screen beside the Admiral. His forearms moved in excited gestures. This will be over quickly, he said. Then we can get back to our real business. Captain Lee looked at his crew one final time. Commander Park stood ready at her tactical station. Lieutenant Tewu had his hands poised over controls that were still hidden from view. Ensign Haijin monitored communications from all the enemy ships. Dr. Yoon waited nearby, ready to treat any wounded. Sir, Park said quietly. All systems are ready. Lee nodded. Very well. It's time these aliens learned something about human engineering. Across space, hidden in the shadow of a dead asteroid, another human ship watched the scene unfold. The Busan Guardian was a stealth vessel, invisible to most sensors. Captain Bae Min-jun sat on his bridge monitoring the situation with growing anticipation. Captain, called Lieutenant Han Soo-jin from her tactical station. Should we move to support the Incheon's Pride? Bae shook his head. No need. Captain Lee can handle this alone. We're just here to observe and report back to Earth. But sir, 12 ships against 1. Watch and learn, Lieutenant. You're about to see why Earth keeps our real capabilities secret. Back on the main battlefield, Admiral Krivas raised his hand to give the final attack order. Human Captain, last chance to surrender. In 5 seconds, my fleet will open fire. Your ship will be destroyed and your crew will die, all because you were too proud to admit your weakness. Lee clasped his hands behind his back. Admiral, I want you to remember this moment. Remember that I gave you a chance to walk away. Count Truan, seconds. Krivas continued. The Incheon's Pride hung in space, looking small and helpless against the massive alien fleet. Its hull was plain gray metal, unremarkable in every way. Nothing about it suggested any special capabilities. 3 seconds. Lieutenant Tewu felt sweat on his forehead. He trusted his captain completely, but the enemy firepower was overwhelming. Even if their ship had hidden weapons, could they really survive an attack from 12 heavy cruisers? 2 seconds. Commander Park smiled grimly. She had been waiting for this moment for years. Earth had spent decades preparing for a situation exactly like this one. The time for hiding was finally over. 1 second. Captain Lee turned to face his crew. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for combat. Reveal all systems. Authorization. Lee Alpha 77. The response was immediate. Throughout the ship, hidden panels slid open to reveal weapon systems that had never appeared on any Galactic Council database. The hull itself began to shift and change as adaptive armor activated. Energy readings spiked to levels that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. Fire! Admiral Krivas shouted. 12 Vorthak cruisers unleashed their full firepower. At the same instant, plasma beams, particle cannons, and explosive missiles filled the space around the human ship. It was enough destructive power to crack the surface of a moon. The energy blasts struck the Inchan's pride and simply disappeared. Not reflected, not absorbed, but completely negated by defensive systems that operated on principles the Vorthak had never encountered. What? General Thexmore stared at his instruments in disbelief. Our weapons had no effect at all. On the human ship, Lieutenant Taewoo watched his displays with growing amazement. Sir, their attack was completely neutralized by our quantum shielding. Quantum shielding? He asked. I've never heard of that technology. That's because it's classified above your security level, Park explained. Earth has been developing it for 20 years. Admiral Krivas screamed orders at his fleet. Fire again, all weapons, maximum power, destroy that ship. The second attack was even more intense than the first. The Vorthak poured everything they had at the human vessel. Energy readings off the scale. Weapons that could destroy entire cities. The fury of an empire that had conquered half a galaxy. Again, the attacks simply vanished when they touched the human ship's defenses. Impossible, Thexmore whispered. What kind of technology is this? Captain Lee activated the ship's external communication system. His voice carried to every Vorthak vessel in the area. Attention, Vorthak fleet. You have fired upon a human warship twice. We consider this an act of war. You now have 15 seconds to surrender before we respond. The alien bridges erupted in confused shouting. Their most powerful weapons had failed completely. The small human ship remained untouched and untroubled. Admiral, one of Krivas's officers reported, our sensors are detecting massive energy spikes from the human vessel. Sir, the readings don't make sense. What do you mean? Krivas demanded. The power output is increasing exponentially. Whatever drives that ship, it's far beyond anything in our databases. On the Inchan's pride, systems that had been hidden for years finally revealed themselves. The ship's true nature became clear as armor plating shifted to expose weapon ports. What had appeared to be a simple patrol vessel was actually something far more dangerous. Lieutenant Taewoo, Captain Lee said calmly, please activate the quantum pulse cannons. Quantum pulse cannons? Taewoo's hands moved over controls he had never seen before. Sir, these weapon systems aren't in any manual I've studied. They're experimental technology, Park explained. Earth's best scientists have been working on them for decades. You're about to become the first weapons officer to use them in combat. The hull of the Inchan's pride opened like a flower. Weapon systems emerged that seemed to bend space around them. Energy crackling with power that made the Vorthak weapons look like toys. 10 seconds, Lee announced to the enemy fleet. Admiral Krivas tried to maintain his composure, but fear was beginning to show in his black eyes. All ships, evasive maneuvers, prepare to jump to hyperspace. Sir, his navigator reported, something is interfering with our jump drives. We can't escape. 5 seconds, Lee said. General Thexmore's voice cracked as he spoke. Human captain, perhaps we can discuss this situation. Surely we can reach an agreement. Lee looked at the screen showing the alien leaders. Both of them had gone from arrogant confidence to barely controlled panic in less than a minute. I offered you a chance to negotiate, General. You chose violence instead. We made a mistake, Krivas said desperately. The Vorthak Empire is willing to discuss terms. Time's up, Captain Lee replied. He turned to his weapons officer. Mr. Taewoo, you may fire when ready. Lieutenant Taewoo looked at his captain, then at the weapon controls that Earth's best engineers had designed in secret. He thought about the innocent people on the captured transport. He thought about the arrogance of aliens who believed humans were weak. Firing quantum pulse cannons, he said, and pressed the activation button. The universe lit up with the fury of human technology unleashed for the first time. The quantum pulse cannons fired with a sound that seemed to come from inside reality itself. Beams of pure energy, more focused than anything the galaxy had ever seen, reached out from the Inchan's pride toward the Vorthak fleet. The first target was Admiral Krivas's flagship, the massive dreadnought Death's Edge. The quantum pulse struck the ship's shields and passed through them as if they were made of paper. The beam touched the hull, and the entire vessel simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, no trace that it had ever been there at all. "Mother of stars," whispered Lieutenant Han Soo-jin aboard the hidden stealth ship Busan Guardian. "They actually did it." Captain Bae Min-jun watched the display with satisfaction. Earth's scientists said the quantum weapons would work. Nice to see they were right. The second pulse struck another Vorthak cruiser. Same result. The ship was there one moment and gone the next, erased from existence by technology that operated beyond normal physics. The third and fourth beams found their targets just as easily. On the remaining Vorthak ships, panic spread like wildfire. General Thexmore stared at his sensors in complete disbelief. 4 of the Empire's most powerful warships had been destroyed in less than 2 seconds. Not damaged, not crippled, but completely annihilated. "Evasive action," he screamed at his crew. "All power to engines." But the human weapons were too fast and too accurate. A 5th cruiser vanished, then a 6th. The beams seemed to ignore distance and speed, striking exactly where they were aimed with impossible precision. Lieutenant Tae-woo watched his targeting display with growing amazement. The weapon systems were responding to his commands faster than he could think them. It was like the ship could read his mind and anticipate what he wanted to do. "Sir," he reported to Captain Lee, "the targeting computer is incredible. It's predicting enemy movements before they make them." Commander Park smiled grimly. "Earth's quantum computers can process more information in 1 second than most civilizations use in a year. They analyze every possible movement the enemy might make." The 7th Vorthak ship tried to hide behind the wreckage of a destroyed vessel, but there was no wreckage to hide behind. The quantum weapons left nothing behind. The beam found the ship anyway and removed it from existence. "This is impossible," General Thexmore said to his remaining crew. His forearms shook with fear. "No species has technology like this. The humans are supposed to be primitives." His communications officer looked up from his station with terror in his eyes. "General, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship." Captain Lee's face appeared on the screen. He looked completely calm, as if erasing 7 warships was no more difficult than breathing. "General Thexmore, you now have 6 ships remaining. I suggest you order them to stand down immediately." "You cannot do this," Thexmore protested. "The Galactic Council has laws about warfare. There are rules." "The rules say that member species can defend themselves against attack," Lee replied evenly. "You fired first, General. Twice. We are simply responding." An 8th Vorthak ship tried to jump to hyperspace, but its engines failed to engage. The human ship was somehow blocking their escape. The quantum pulse found it a moment later and added it to the list of the vanished. Dr. Yoon Ji-hwan appeared on the bridge of the Incheon's Pride. He had been monitoring the battle from the medical bay, ready to treat casualties, but there were no human casualties to treat. "Captain," he said quietly, "the people on the transport ship are asking what's happening. They can see the Vorthak fleet disappearing, but they don't understand how." Lee nodded. "Tell them they're safe. Tell them the situation is under control." A 9th Vorthak cruiser tried a desperate attack run, aiming all its weapons at the human ship and firing at point-blank range. The quantum shielding absorbed the attack without even flickering. The return pulse removed the attacker from existence. 10%, Lieutenant Tae-woo reported. "What?" Lee asked. "Sir, the weapon systems are showing we've used 10% of available power. We're barely getting started." Commander Park checked her own displays. "The ship's main reactor is running at minimum output. We could do this all day without straining the engines." Only 3 Vorthak ships remained now. General Thexmore's vessel and 2 others. The aliens who had been so confident just minutes before now huddled in their command centers, unable to understand what had happened to their mighty fleet. Captain Lee opened a channel to all remaining enemy ships. "Attention, Vorthak vessels. You have seen what human technology can do. You have exactly 30 seconds to power down your weapons and release the civilian transport. If you comply, your ships and crews will be spared. If you refuse, you will join the others." On General Thexmore's bridge, the crew looked to their leader for orders. The general stared at the human captain on the screen. All his arrogance was gone now, replaced by the cold knowledge of complete defeat. "How?" he asked simply. "How is this possible? Our intelligence said you were weak. Your ships were supposed to be primitive." Lee clasped his hands behind his back. "General, your intelligence was based on what we chose to show you. For 50 years, humanity has been learning about the galaxy. We have studied every species, every technology, every military doctrine. We have been preparing. Preparing for what? For this moment. For the day when someone would mistake our restraint for weakness." One of the remaining Vorthak ships suddenly powered down its weapons. Its captain appeared on the communication screen, a younger alien who looked terrified but smart enough to recognize reality. "I surrender," the young captain said. "My crew surrenders. Please don't destroy us." Lee nodded approvingly. "Very wise. Move your ship away from the transport and wait for further instructions." The second remaining ship followed the first one's example. Its weapons powered down and it moved to a safe distance. That left only General Thexmore's vessel still armed and dangerous. 20 seconds, General," Lee announced calmly. Thexmore looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were warriors who had followed him through dozens of battles. They had never known defeat before today, but they could all see the tactical display showing 9 ships that had simply vanished. "General," his weapons officer said quietly, "we should surrender. This fight is over." 15 seconds, Lee said. Thexmore closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, some of his old pride had returned. "If I power down my weapons, what guarantee do I have that you won't destroy us anyway?" "You have my word as a human." "Officer," Lee replied, "surrender now and you will live to see another day." 10 seconds. The general looked at his crew one more time. Then he turned to his weapons officer. "Power down all weapons. Lower shields. Transmit our surrender." 5 seconds, Lee continued the countdown. "We surrender," Thexmore shouted. "The Vorthak fleet surrenders to the human vessel." Lee smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Surrender accepted, General. All Vorthak vessels will remain in position while we secure the civilian transport." Lieutenant Taewoo looked up from his weapons station. "Sir, what about the ships we destroyed? Should I send a message to their home bases?" "No need," Commander Park said. "The stealth ships will handle that. Earth wants the galaxy to know exactly what happened here today." Captain Lee turned to Dr. Yoon. "Doctor, please prepare to receive the passengers from the transport. I imagine they'll need medical attention after their ordeal." As the Inchun's pride moved toward the civilian ship, the 3 surviving Vorthak vessels hung motionless in space. Their crews stared at instruments they no longer trusted, trying to understand how their entire understanding of human capabilities had been so completely wrong. In the space around them, there was no trace of the 9 ships that had been destroyed. The quantum weapons had erased them so completely that not even their atoms remained. It was as if they had never existed at all. For the first time in the history of the Vorthak Empire, a military force had been utterly defeated by a single enemy ship. And that ship belonged to the species they had called weak and primitive. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major species had received reports of what happened in the Outer Rim. A single human ship had destroyed 9 Vorthak cruisers without taking any damage. The reports seemed impossible, but the evidence was undeniable. On Earth, President Nam Kyung-soo sat in his office reading the after-action report from Captain Lee. The president was a calm man who had led humanity through its first decades as a galactic power. He had always known this day would come. "Ambassador O," he said to the woman sitting across from his desk. "How are the other species reacting?" Ambassador Oh Seung-hee was Earth's chief diplomat to the Galactic Council. She had spent years building relationships with alien governments while carefully managing their expectations about human capabilities. Shock, mostly. The Vorthak Empire is demanding an explanation. Several other species are asking if the reports are true. And what are you telling them? The truth, That humanity has been preparing for this possibility since we joined the Council. President Nam nodded. Schedule an emergency session of the Council. It's time for complete honesty. Meanwhile, on the Incheon's Pride, Captain Lee was dealing with the immediate aftermath of the battle. Dr. Yoon had treated the rescued civilians from the transport ship. Most of them were miners and their families, simple people who had been caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Captain, one of the rescued passengers said, "We saw what happened. How did you destroy all those ships?" Lee chose his words carefully. "We used advanced defensive systems to protect ourselves and our weapons to neutralize the threat. But they just disappeared. We've never seen anything like it." Commander Park stepped forward. "The technology is new to most of the galaxy. Earth has been developing it in secret for many years." General Thexmore was being held in the ship's brig along with his senior officers. The proud alien warrior had been silent since his surrender, staring at the walls of his cell with empty eyes. Lieutenant Tae-woo had tried to interview him, but the general refused to speak. "He's in shock," Dr. Yoon explained. "His entire worldview has been shattered. The Vorthak Empire has never experienced a defeat like this." "Will he recover?" Lee asked. "Physically, yes. Mentally, it will take time. He needs to process what happened and find a way to accept it." 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session on the neutral world of Harmony Station. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. President Nam arrived with a small delegation including Ambassador Oh and Captain Lee, who had been called to testify about the battle. The human group looked small compared to some of the massive alien delegations, but no one underestimated them anymore. The council speaker, a tall crystalline being called Zorthak the Fair, called the session to order. "We are here to discuss the incident involving human and Vorthak forces in the Outer Rim. The chair recognizes the Vorthak representative. General Krixtal, one of the few surviving high-ranking Vorthak officers, stood to address the assembly. His face bore fresh scars from the destruction of the fleet. Honored council members, the Vorthak Empire has suffered an unprovoked attack by human forces. 9 of our ships were destroyed without warning or justification." Murmurs filled the EOA hall. Many species had historical conflicts with the Vorthak, but the Empire was still a major power. An attack against them was serious business. Ambassador Oh stood up. "The chair recognizes the human representative." "Thank you," Oh said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "The human delegation disputes the Vorthak characterization of events. Captain Lee Dae-ho of the vessel Incheon's Pride is here to provide testimony." Captain Lee stood and walked to the witness podium. He looked out at hundreds of alien faces, some curious, some hostile, some frightened. "Honored council members, I am Captain Lee Dae-ho of the Earth Defense Force. 3 days ago, my ship responded to a distress call from a civilian transport." He told the story simply and clearly. The captured civilians, the arrogant demands of General Thexmore, the arrival of the Vorthak fleet, and the unprovoked attack on his ship. He left out no details, including his multiple attempts to resolve the situation peacefully. "The Vorthak forces fired first," Lee concluded. "They fired twice, in fact, with the clear intention of destroying my ship and killing my crew. We responded in self-defense." General Krixtal stood up angrily. "You call the complete annihilation of 9 ships self-defense? Your weapon systems are clearly designed for offensive warfare, not protection." President Nam rose from his seat. "If I may address the council?" The speaker nodded. "The chair recognizes the President of Earth." Nam walked to the center of the hall. He was not a tall man compared to many of the aliens present, but his presence filled the space. "Fellow council members, humanity has been part of this organization for 50 years. During that time, we have shared technology, culture, and friendship with dozens of species. We have also been watching and learning." He activated a holographic display that showed the technical specifications of the Incheon's Pride. The real specifications, not the simplified version that had been in the council database. Earth has been developing advanced defensive technology since we first encountered hostile forces in space. Our ships may look simple from the outside, but they contain the most sophisticated systems our scientists can build. A representative from the Altair Confederation, a species known for their own advanced technology, studied the display with growing amazement. These power systems are beyond anything we thought possible. How long have you been working on this? Since our first contact with aliens, Nam replied honestly. We learned quickly that space can be a dangerous place. We chose to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Another alien delegate, this one from the Peaceful Harmony Collective, spoke up. Why did you keep these capabilities secret? The Council shares all military technology for the common defense. Ambassador O answered this question. We shared what we felt was appropriate. But complete openness can be dangerous. If everyone knows exactly what your ships can do, hostile forces can prepare countermeasures. The Vorthak representative tried again. You cannot justify the destruction of an entire fleet. Our forces were acting within Vorthak territory. Captain Lee stepped forward. General Krikstal, your forces were attacking a civilian transport and threatening innocent lives. When I asked for the release of the hostages, I was told that humans were weak and would be enslaved. Your Admiral Krivas gave me 1 minute to surrender or be destroyed. That does not justify mass murder. Lee's voice remained calm but firm. General, I gave your fleet multiple opportunities to withdraw. I warned them that they were making a mistake. They chose to attack anyway. A new voice spoke from the assembly. It was one of the rescued civilians from the transport ship, a young mining engineer named Park Jun-ho. He had been given permission to testify about his experience. Honored council members, Park said. I was on the transport when it was captured. The Vorthak warriors said they would sell us as slaves. They said no one would come to help us because humans were too weak to fight. Captain Lee saved our lives. The testimony continued for hours. Witness after witness confirmed the same story. The Vorthak had attacked first. The humans had tried diplomacy. Only when all peaceful options were exhausted did Earth's forces respond, with violence. Finally, the council speaker called for order. The testimony is complete. The council will now deliberate. The debate that followed lasted 2 full days. Some species supported the human actions completely. Others worried about the implications of such advanced weapons. A few suggested that Earth had become too powerful and needed to be controlled. In the end, the council reached a unanimous decision. The Vorthak Empire was censured for attacking a civilian transport and threatening council citizens. General Thexmore was stripped of his military rank and banned from commanding ships. The Empire was ordered to pay reparations to the freed hostages. More importantly, Earth was formally recognized as a major military power. The fiction that humans were a minor species with limited capabilities was finally ended. President Nam addressed the council one final time. Fellow members, humanity does not seek to dominate or conquer. We want the same thing we have always wanted: peace, prosperity, and the chance to explore the stars together. But we will not allow innocent people to suffer when we have the power to help them. As the human delegation prepared to leave Harmony Station, Captain Lee received an unexpected visitor. General Thexmore, no longer wearing the uniform of a Vorthak officer, stood outside his quarters. Captain, the alien said quietly, I wanted to speak with you before you left. Lee studied the former general. The proud warrior looked older now, worn down by defeat and disgrace. What can I do for you, Thexmore? I wanted to understand. How did your species develop such advanced technology so quickly? Most civilizations take thousands of years to reach that level. Lee considered the question carefully. We had a head start in a way. When we first reached space, we found a galaxy already filled with advanced civilizations. We could learn from your mistakes and build on your successes. But the quantum weapons, the defensive systems,